FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
John Locke once said, with regard to religious persecution, that there's a natural bias to our minds. And the natural bias is that we think we know better than other people. The better educated people are, the stronger that bias is in them. It gets inflated in character. So the tyrannical impulse, the desire to run other people's lives, for their benefit, of course, is there in all of us. It's especially visible in parents, and it's a good thing in parents. It keeps their children in line. It is much resented, and that's also a good thing. But it can be transferred into the larger world very easily. That's easy to explain. It's easy to explain the nanny state because there's a nanny inside every one of us. It is not so easy to understand why somebody would want to be under the nanny, except, according to Tocqueville, according to Rousseau before him, and Montesquieu, the dominant mood within liberal commercial societies where there is a modicum of actual equality is inquiétude. It's a word they borrowed from Pascal, and it refers to fear without a certain object. It refers to anxiety. It refers to a sense of not knowing what to do, of feeling just a little bit lost. In liberal societies, no one tells you what your religion is going to be. Eventually, I mean, your parents may, but they lose control at a certain point, and eventually the burden of deciding where you're going to come down falls upon you. In liberal societies, you do not inherit much property. Your parents send you to Dartmouth, and you gain skills. And making a life falls upon you. In liberal societies, the economy is generally prosperous, but it goes up and down. And there will be times when bankruptcy may suddenly appear out of nowhere at a time when you thought you were very prosperous.
Hang on, let me see if I understand the underlying point, the underlying psychological point with an illustration. I've heard many friends say that this is shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russians would visit the United States, take in all the many wonders and do just fine, and then friends would take them, I've heard 2 or 3 stories that were roughly the same, then friends would take them to a grocery store, and there would be a kind of lock because of an incapacity simply to process the number of choices, the availability of choice, a kind of debilitating anxiety. One friend who was a Russian who got out early had brought his cousin, and the cousin stood in the produce aisle and broke down into tears. Just couldn't, and that's an extreme version of what you're talking about here. The anxiety of freedom.
In pre-modern societies, there's someone there to tell you what to do. There is the priest, there is the lord, there is some sort of capo, a boss of one sort or another. But the more commercial we become, the more liberal we become, the freer we are, the heavier the burden on individuals to fashion lives for themselves. And that naturally creates a species of anxiety. You can see it in college seniors. They have been on a line, and they have been sent to high school, then they've been sent on to college. And suddenly, in the fall of senior year, it begins to dawn on them that what happens after college is something that they are solely responsible for. And they're afraid. They're afraid because there's nobody to take care of them anymore.
Hence, they flock to grad school.
Yes, they go to graduate school, they go to law school, and they put it off. But nonetheless, it happens. So in such a society, because of the dominance of this mood of inquiétude, there is a natural propensity for human beings to look for a helping hand.